Everything she does to make everything look better. And I'm so excited to hear her message. Following her, we're going to hear from Rick Davidson, the president of the Everest Group, and looking very much forward to him. Did you guys know Rick just hiked and climbed to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro? If you're not watching Facebook, very incredible. And then following that, we're going to hear from Mr. George Morris. So guys, thanks for being here today. Danette, the floor is yours.
To be here with you today. Okay. We're going to not worry about having a wardrobe malfunction. So we're going to Okay, so we're going to talk today about branding. Next slide, please. Our clicker's not working either. So we are so excited about the new look and feel of Century 21, and also something that you'll be hearing more about within the next couple of weeks as we announce another change, which many of you probably have already heard about. We're dropping the Realty Group and just moving to Everest. So you'll hear more about that later. But we're just really excited about this new look and feel and what it's doing for us as a company and a brand globally. And I just want to recognize Parker. Could you stand for just a quick minute? Parker is our new digital marketing manager. Similar to this online, and he recreated it for us. So he is excellent. He's really talented. We're so excited to have him with us. So you'll be seeing and hearing a lot more from him as we roll all of this out for you over the next few months. So as I was thinking about branding, I wanted to talk to you today about your personal brand. Next slide. Okay. This is the definition of what a brand is. So that new logo looks fantastic, but a logo is not a brand. Right? Basically, a brand is the consumer's gut feeling about that product, service, or organization. So I want you to think for a minute about what your personal brand is. What kind of customer experience do your clients have with you? What's their gut feeling about you? Is the C21 Everest brand experience like Nordstrom or like Walmart? Both of these are incredible brands, but when you go to these two different stores, do you have totally different experiences? Do you have different expectations? Are you willing to pay more at one store than you are at another? And it's all about that experience that you have, right? Like, I just love walking into that store. I love going to the shoe department and having somebody make me feel like I am a movie star, and they want to bring me all the shoes that will look wonderful on me and help me and make suggestions. And when I go to Walmart, if I need something, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm like running up and down the aisles. I have to go clear back up to the front, find somebody to tell me to go clear back to the back or whatever. So think about that as you think about your clients and how you serve them. Like, you want to give them that concierge experience, because here at Everest, we are a Nordstrom experience. And if you've ever worked for Nordstrom, which I worked for Nordstrom and several of my daughters have, and their motto is no excuses, just results. Whatever that client or customer needs, you get it for them, and you make them feel really special. I'm going to talk at the end about my daughter Carly, so I just want to tell you something at the beginning about her. She said the most important thing she learned when she was working at Nordstrom was to remember a client's name the first time they came in. And the next time she saw them when they were in the store, when she called them by name, they were so shocked, and they said, "You remember me?" "Yes, I loved helping you last time you were in the store." Well, guess what? Next time they were going in, guess who they're going to find? Carly, just because she knew their name and remembered their name and made them feel special. Okay, next. So, I already said this. Next slide. So, does your brand represent you? Okay, so does anybody recognize this guy? Okay, so there we go, Justin Udi. Okay, so that image represents his brand. So because your brand should really fit you like a well-tailored suit, even if it's a pink one. And I gave Josh a hard time today, because Josh can rock this pink suit, right? It's part of his brand, it's part of who he is, part of the fun experience that he gives his clients, very memorable. He makes it work, it's authentic for him. Okay, next. I spent some time this week with Tina Hare down in California. Tina is the #1 agent for Century 21 nationally. She is part of our Century 21 company in California, and she is amazing. So her little tagline is confident, committed, caring. So if that's who you are, if that's your brand experience, then you need to exude that, right? And Tina exudes confidence. When she goes in to her appointments with her clients, she goes in as the expert. She challenges them if they try to tell her where a home is going to be priced. She goes, wait a minute. You hired me because I'm a real estate expert. I do this all day, every day. I know how to price your home. If you think you know how to price your home better than I do, then perhaps you should just try and sell your home by yourself. She confronts them right there. And she says she does it kindly, but she just establishes very confidently that she is the expert. And she also explained to me how she prices her home. So if any of you are interested in that information, we can talk about that personally. It's really interesting, all the different kinds of CMAs she collects so that she makes sure she knows everything about that neighborhood, the whole community, and just every part of the market. She really is a true expert. She's incredible. So in determining your own brand, you can go through these 4 steps, okay, about your unique value proposition. What benefit do you offer? Who are the people you want to reach? How do you solve their problems? And what makes you different? Maybe it's a pink suit, who knows? But what makes you stand out? What makes you different? Okay, the solving problems thing, I think, is something that we all really overlook because my children right now, I have 6 children and many of them are just starting to purchase homes. And they talk to their friends a lot. And these young people who are buying their first homes especially, they don't know anything about this. And so many of them have said to each other, wow, my real estate agent didn't even really explain to me about all of the costs involved with closing costs and different things like that. And I wish I had known at the beginning what I really needed to prepare for. Okay, so if you're thinking that that's not part of your job as a realtor, if you're just kind of thinking all of that information should come from their lender, they're looking to you as the expert to walk them through the process. Okay, so whatever your brand is, you really need to own it. And I remember George telling me years ago when I was selling real estate, you can go to the next slide, Parker. He said, it's you. That's who they're going to buy from. And I'm sure he said that to many of you as well. That it's about who you are. And that is so interesting, right? People just kind of trust you. It's not your marketing materials. It's not, those things are all important. Of course, I'm director of marketing. I'm not going to say that's not important. But ultimately, it's you. It's about who you are when you go into that appointment and what you represent to them. And you need to make sure that your clients are falling in love with you and your brand of real estate, because that's what will make them loyal. So we all have, in marketing, there's always going to be a hate group. So what do you do with your hate group? Absolutely nothing. But how many of us spend our time trying to convince our hate group that they should love us? Guess what? Our hate group is a very small portion of the people in the world, but sometimes we give them all the power. And we need to recognize that really we all have a love group, and the largest group is a swing group. Okay, that's the majority of the people out there in the world, the people who don't even know about you yet, right? So you want to sell to your swing group through the eyes of your love group. You need to find out what it is about you and your personal brand that people love, that attracts them, that they're attracted to, and then you need to tell that story to the swing group so that they can become your clients also. And how do you think we can tell that story to the swing group? The best place right now is really social media. That's where you can really reach a lot of people and show them your story, show them your brand through the eyes of your love group. And so I just want to challenge you to do more of that. Just kind of get out there and document your stories, document your brand, show the world who you are, and try to reach that swing group through the eyes of your love group. So this is my daughter, Carly. she just gave birth to identical twin boys, which is so exciting in her family. She has a little daughter named Navy. And I'm going to share her story with you because it has just been amazing to watch this unfold, the power of social media in building a personal brand and what it has done for her. So 4 years ago after Navy was born, her body had gone through some pretty big changes. She'd gained some weight, and she really wanted to get fit again. So she started following someone online and kind of formed a little support group with some other moms, and they were all trying to get fit. And then she set a goal for her accountability. She wanted to be able to post a before and after picture and try to get the attention of this worldwide social media influencer. She wanted to be featured on that page to prove that she really did it. So she worked really, really hard, and she had her before and after picture. Okay, well, it's okay. I wasn't going to show you this quite yet, but still try to just focus on where I'm going. So she got the attention of this social media influencer, and her goal was, she heard that some of these people that worked for this social media influencer made $75,000 a year. And that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to get a job with this social media influencer. So she sent them her picture before and after, and they said, oh, you're amazing, we're going to post you. And then they didn't post her. And then they invited her to New York, but they didn't pay for her trip, but they paid for other people's trips. She came home so defeated, not to mention the real negative reaction she got from many members of the family on both sides, because she actually appeared in a sports bra on social media, and they thought that was really inappropriate. So she was so shamed and so upset that she pulled her whole social media site down, and she just kind of forgot about it. Then a couple years later, she said, this is kind of silly. I kind of want to really get back out there on social media. So she started posting again. It actually happened because she was teaching a fitness class, and people started asking her for her recipes and for her meal plan. And she started just selling this little meal plan, just handing out copies of it. And one month she made $1,000, and she was so excited. And so she started just selling it. Well, her sister, who's an English major, and her mother, who's a marketing person, were horrified at the things she was putting out there to sell, because it wasn't designed, it had typos, it had all kinds of issues. And it didn't matter, because people started falling in love with Carly and with her authenticity online, and telling the story about how hard it was to get in shape and what she went through, and sharing her meal plan, and reaching out to people. Whoever comments on her page, she reaches out to them, finds their profile online, finds their first name, comments back, oh, Jennifer, thank you so much for your comment. And because she knows their name and responds, her following is so loyal and so engaged. Just to put it all in perspective, so far this year she has made $400,000. She bought her husband a Tesla. And today I said, I really want you to come today. She goes, Mom, I can't. We're like going out to meet with a bunch of people. We're designing some new products, etc., etc. So her husband, who graduated from U Chicago Law School, is now kind of managing his little social media influencer wife. Sorry to kind of brag about her, I am, but my point in telling all of you this is I just got so excited about the potential that's out there. And she said, Mom, all of these influencers are so excited about buying real estate. So why don't you have your agents reach out to them and try to get an influencer as a client that they can then be featured on their page, offer them some kind of service, and then all these people who follow these influencers are going to be calling you for their real estate needs because somebody else recommended you. Just a little thought. Anyway, I'm excited to see your stories out there on social media, and for you to harness the power that's out there to market yourself. And remember, once again, like Carly is just extremely authentic, and she connects with people. It's not always about a phone call. We want you to call people, but there are ways to connect online, and so I hope you'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. And Jeremy, by the way, I love you.
Good afternoon, or should I say habari asubuhi, that's what they would say in Swahili. So it's good to see everyone, and excited to be here. Jeremy mentioned the fact that I just got back from a trek on Kilimanjaro, which was incredible, to say the least. But it got me thinking, as typically most things do, about business. So I wanted to share a few things with you. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce my incredible, lovely, beautiful, talented wife, Tina, for those of you that have never met her. And for any of you that have been on the 6th floor in the Union Park office, the artwork there is actually Tina's artwork. So she's more talented than she is beautiful. That's pretty hard to beat. I love you, Tina. Anyway, habari asubuhi. It's good to be here with everyone. And twende juu, as they would say, which means we're going to climb up, but pole pole, because that means slow and easy and steady to the summit. But as I got thinking about this trek that I was just on, I started thinking about how it related to business. And I started thinking about all the mountains that I've climbed, physically climbed, not anecdotally. We've all climbed mountains, but these are actual physical mountains that I've climbed over the years. I'm sorry, but this isn't advancing. There we go. So here's a picture of the few. Top left, let's see, it goes Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount Baker, Mount Shuksan, Mount Elbrus, which is in Russia, El Pico de Orizaba, Ixtaccíhuatl, and the bottom right is Kilimanjaro. So every one of these mountains takes a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort if you expect to achieve the summit. And every one of these climbs, is this working or are you watching me clip? Okay. I was wondering, this is just a slight pause, right? So I'll do this, Parker. Good job, by the way. Before I get into this, I did find it really funny that Unleash the Power Within, it said in the New York area, but then Jeremy actually said it's in Newark. Okay, for those of you that don't know, we moved here from New Jersey, and if you go to Unleash the Power Within in Newark, I guarantee you won't leave the session because you don't want to go walk around Newark. It's not a safe place to go. Anybody from New Jersey? Okay, a few people, you know what I mean. So, Mount Kilimanjaro, you don't just show up to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is one of the 7 summits. It's the 4th tallest of the 7 summits. It's 19,341 vertical feet. We took a route called the Machame route, which is 30 miles from where you start the hike to the summit. That does not include the descent. So 30 miles to the top over the course of 7.5 days to get from the trailhead to the summit and back down to the trailhead, which is actually a different trailhead than where you start the climb. It is the tallest mountain on the African continent. It is the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, which means it is not part of a mountain range. It's a volcano. And it's a long slog to get to the top of Kili. And as you can imagine, it's located in Tanzania, on the coastal side of Tanzania, so far eastern part of Africa. It takes a long time to get there. There's a lot to prepare for. So it's a terrific climb. But as I started relating this whole mountain climbing experience that I've had, regardless of what mountain it is, it always comes down to really having a plan and how all of this relates then specifically to business. And I call it the boardroom meets the mountain. Because every time that I'm on a mountain, I start thinking about what is the process that I had to go through in order for me to be able to have an opportunity to achieve the summit. I may not get to the summit, but I'm not going to even have an opportunity unless I approach this in a very serious way, and if I don't plan for it and prepare for it properly. So the first is establish the objective. And remember, relate this to your business. What is the objective? What is the goal? It's one of the tenets that we talk about, right? You got to know where you're going. You have to have a goal, an objective. For me, when I go to climb a mountain, truly the objective is to arrive safely at the end of the descent. I just want to get back safely. Because some of these mountains, you are putting yourself at risk. So, first of all, establish the objective. Without a clear understanding of the objective, success is a pipe dream. How can you achieve success if you don't know where it is that you're trying to go? Next is determine the route. So how do you want to approach your business? What type of marketing? What type of prospecting? What aspect of the real estate space do you want to operate within? Is it in the luxury space, the first-time home buyer? Is it in the Hispanic market? Is it in the Asian market? It could be any one of these things. Determine where your farm is. So determining the route is a critical component of this. If you could just drop back to that. And so this is the Machame route, is the route that we took to the summit of Kilimanjaro. And if you can see, the Machame route goes up to the Shira camp, then it cuts all the way across, and then you descend. So you climb high, then you actually descend all the way down to the Barafu camp, which is what they consider to be base camp. The lowest elevation that you climb after you start the climb is the Karanga camp. It's 6 camps along the way until you arrive at the Barafu camp. They call it the base camp, but it's actually high camp. That is where you attempt the summit from that particular point. So sometimes you have to, this is also very relatable to business. Sometimes you have to step back in order to move forward, right? Sometimes you have to adjust in order to take your business to the next level. So for us, from an elevation standpoint, and as we acclimatized going up the mountain, we actually had to descend and sleep at a lower altitude before we ascended back up to a higher elevation. Base camp, by the way, is at 16,000 feet, and the summit's at 19,341. So we went back to base camp. So then, once you establish your objective and you identify the route that you plan to take, then you have to prepare. And preparation can be many things, whether it's understanding the market, understanding the customer base that you want to focus on, understanding the kind of real estate that you want to sell. What do you know about the industry? What do you know about a particular community or even street or neighborhood within that community? For mountain climbing, it's training. First of all, you've got to train properly. Secondly, it's what are the weather forecasts? The thing that is unpredictable on a mountain is the weather, because these mountains, at the altitude especially of a mountain like Kilimanjaro, it creates its own weather pattern. It doesn't matter what's going on in Arusha, which is the city that's closest to the base of Kilimanjaro. It's really about what's happening up on the mountain, what's happening towards the summit, because the weather, one thing is certain, is going to change. So what are the weather forecasts? What training have you done? What gear is it that you're going to need? Once you show up in Tanzania, I can tell you there's not a lot of outfitters in Arusha that are selling mountain climbing gear. It's kind of like stepping back into the 50s there. It's a really interesting city. Next is logistics, on and off the mountain. So we hired a mountain guide that was based here, happens to be a friend of mine. George and I climbed Mount Baker with him last year. Craig's been in the business for a long time. In fact, this was his 16th ascent of Mount Kilimanjaro. And he just came off of summiting Mount Everest in May. So we hired an outfitter that came from the United States. He hired an outfitter on the ground in Tanzania. So you can start to see that logistically, man, this thing starts to get really deep and really wide in terms of the amount of planning and preparation that it takes in order to get there. It doesn't include the training. Bell Canyon, up to the falls, became my training go-to. And it was how fast could I get to the falls, tag the rock at the top, and then descend. And I just kept pushing myself and pushing myself and pushing myself until I felt as though I was prepared, ready to go and take this slog 30 miles from the trailhead to the summit of the mountain and down. Next is you have to get visas. You have to have vaccinations. Had to go to a travel doctor. You got to know, what risk do you have from a health standpoint. Emergency preparedness. I carry what's called a Spot Navigator, and I have an insurance policy that's tied to my Spot Navigator. So anywhere that I am, I can just press an OK button, and it sends an email out to the list of people that I want to receive that message, and they get a message saying, hey, Mandy, that's my daughter, she and I climbed this together. We're okay on our way to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, had there been a problem, there's a 911 button on it. And the 911 button, if I hit it twice consecutively, it will send a helicopter to where we are. Because it's obviously an emergency. But emergency preparedness is a big part. Think about this as it relates to your business. When the market turns, when something happens, when the route needs to change, when you aren't quite trained or prepared in order to address whatever the challenges might be within your business on a day-to-day basis. You have to be ready and be nimble and have the ability then to be able to shift the way that you're approaching it in order to still achieve the objective. So the next is selecting your team. Now this is a really important one. How many of you are on a team? Come on, raise your hands. Okay, I'd say it's about half of the room. So the rest of you are sole practitioners. You are your team, and whatever support that you find and that you surround yourself with are also part of your team. You have to recognize who on your team has what it takes in order for you to achieve your objective. I take this incredibly seriously. Now, Mount Kilimanjaro isn't as much a team sport as a lot of the other mountains that I climb, where you are connected on a rope, you got ice axe crampons, you're moving up the glacier, you've got the risk of crevasse fall, and your team is literally your life, because if you fall into a crevasse, they have to go into self-arrest mode, they have to keep you from sliding off and falling into the crevasse and corking at the bottom, which would not be a pleasant experience. This is a picture actually of my daughter right there in the purple. As you can see, this doesn't really give you much perspective, but this is a pretty steep drop, and you can look off to the side and see just how high we actually are. This is called the breakfast wall. It's 865 vertical feet, straight up, and it isn't like it's not your classic switchbacks. This is kind of like, almost like ladder switchbacks going up this sheer face. And this is where team comes into play. But selecting your team is a critical component of the overall ability and opportunity to achieve the objective. Who is on your team? Let's keep moving. Who's committed? Go ahead. Have they properly prepared? Can you trust them with your life? Do they have what it takes to accomplish the objective? The team is everything, and no one achieves the objective purely on their own. If you think, even if you're a sole practitioner, that you can achieve whatever level of success that you want without support of others, you're kidding yourself. Right? These are critically important components. So if you're on a team, as you look around your team, and you look at the other team members, who's committed to the objective? You're going to know pretty quickly who is and who is not. Because what are they willing to do? Are they willing to do everything that is necessary in order to accomplish the goal? Can you trust them with your life? Hey, if your goals and objectives are tied to what you want personally out of life, it is your life. So can you trust those that you have surrounded yourself with your goals and your objectives for your own life? And if you can't, then you have to take a really serious look at those that you have surrounded yourself with, and you need to be willing to make some very tough decisions. Ongoing assessment, and this really leads to that. Go ahead and click through them, and then I'll talk to them. So first of all, ongoing assessment, how are you performing? How do you assess your own performance on a day-to-day basis? How do you hold yourself accountable? Not how others hold you accountable. How do you hold yourself accountable? And what are you willing to do in order to step to the next level? The second thing is, as you're assessing, what changes do you need to make in your approach? What did you do yesterday that did not achieve the result that you were expecting, and how are you going to alter the way in which you approached the business yesterday to achieve the result today? Everything is a step, right? 30 miles of trekking up Kilimanjaro to get to the summit, every single step is one step in the process. And if I need to change the way that I happen to be moving or hiking because I got a tweak or something going on in my body, I have to really stay in tune with myself, and I've got to adjust to that. Or maybe the altitude's starting to get to me, and I've got to hydrate more, or I've got to get something to eat because I'm feeling a little bit weak, or I need to take a break, and I need to be willing to talk to those people on my team. How's the team performing? Who is struggling? Who on the team is struggling? You can see it every single day. We all can. We all know who the weak link on our teams are. Now, the key is it mental or physical? When I look at it on the mountain, is it a physical issue when I'm climbing with someone, or is it a mental issue? Are they so deep inside their own head that they're telling themselves a negative story? Or do they actually have a real issue? So if you relate that to business, are they telling themselves that they can't accomplish something because they're having difficulty in understanding what their full potential is? Or do they have something else going on that's more physical? And if it's something else that's going on, and I don't mean physical in the sense of like I hurt my bicep, I mean physical in the sense of physical life. Like, do they have a family issue maybe that they're dealing with? Do they have other challenges that they're dealing with that aren't just mental challenges? And can you help them to address those challenges so that mentally they can free up to really be the person that they need to be in order to keep moving forward? Can their performance be corrected with a conversation, or is it something more critical? There's a really good book, if you're part of a team, that's called Fierce Conversations. And you have to be willing to have fierce conversations with people. I'll tell you a story. Back in 2009, I climbed Mount Rainier with my two brothers. And my younger brother is a big guy. He's about George's size. But he's not very fit. And we were moving up the mountain, and we got to about 12,500 feet, and we're all connected to a rope, and we're climbing across the glacier. And I had to have a really fierce conversation with my brother and tell him, I love you. I know how much time and energy and effort you put into this climb, how much money you spent in order to get here, but you can't go to the summit today. Because his inability to be able to make the summit was going to limit the entire team's ability to achieve the summit. So we dug out this nice spot in the glacier, and we stuck a snow stake in, and we put him in a sleeping bag, and we tied him off. And people would say that that's cruel and unusual punishment. It probably was, but the rest of us made the summit. And he knew full well that he didn't have what it takes in order to make the summit. It was a really hard lesson for him, and it was a really difficult conversation for me. Last thing I wanted to do was leave my brother on the side of the mountain. But I know he would be safe, but the whole team would never have made the summit if he would have stayed connected to the rope. So who on the team that is in your life, in your business life, that is preventing you or holding you back from achieving your ultimate level of success? You have to be willing to have a fierce conversation. Look at the basics. If they aren't paying attention to them, there's a problem. Again, the basics, right? The basics of our business. How many contacts have we made? How many calls are we prospecting? How often are we staying up on the market? How are we perfecting our presentation and our pitch? How hard are we working on a day-to-day basis? For me on the mountain, it's about what's their cadence? Okay, I watch people's cadence all the time. I watch, are they hydrating? There's a thing called pressure breathing when you get up at altitude. It's like blowing out a big cake full of candles. And if they aren't doing those things, if they don't have the proper cadence, if they're not hydrating, if they're not pressure breathing, if they're not alert, if they're not talking, then I know that they've got a problem. And I'm going to be watching them even more closely because it's going to become physical. It might only be mental at that point, but it could become physical. So who in your team or in your sphere that you use to assist you to get your business to the next level, who isn't performing, and what are the signs that you're seeing, and are you willing to have that fierce conversation with them about changing or leaving? Accountability. Critical. Go ahead. So again, have to be willing to have fierce conversations. This picture here to the right, so that's at the peak of, that's right at the summit on the crater rim. You can see the crater to the left. That's right on the summit of the crater rim of El Pico de Orizaba, which is the tallest mountain in Mexico. It's about 18,500 feet. We're all connected to a rope. That's me up, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, fourth guy up in front of the guy in the red jacket. And we're all connected to a rope. So there's a point in time on the mountain where unclipping someone, like I talked about leaving my brother on the side of Mount Rainier, in a really safe space, there's a point on the mountain where unclipping is not an option. We're on the summit ridge. You can't unclip anyone here. This, you can see how steep it is, right? And this is a glacier. And if you've ever been in Gore-Tex on a glacier, you slide like ice on glass. And the second that you start to slide, if you don't self-arrest, it's problematic. So there's no unclipping anyone. So if we get to this point, to the summit ridge, and the summit is right there in front of us, but one of the team does not have what it takes or is not willing to put forth the effort, the entire team fails. No one gets to go to the summit. That is painful. And I have had it happen multiple times. A lot of those mountains I showed you, Mount Adams, I climbed 3 times to get to the summit. Mount Rainier I have climbed 6 times, I've only made the summit 3 times. El Pico de Orizaba I've climbed 2 times. Mount Baker I've climbed 2 times. 1 time on the summit, 1 time not on the summit. A lot of climbs, a lot of time, energy, and effort, not just in getting to the mountain and all the logistics and everything that took in place, but all the preparation leading up to it, all the training. All to be thwarted by someone who was not fully prepared and did not take the game as seriously as everyone else on the rope team had taken it. Okay. And that picture, by the way, if you go back, that is at sunrise on Kili. So we're up at about, I think at around 18,500 feet. Sun's just coming up. We started the climb at midnight. Got up at 11 p.m. I say got up. You never really went to bed. Got up at 11, started the climb at 12, and that was at sunrise. Okay. So, celebrate success. This is a critical component. How many of you take time when you close a deal to literally spend time with one another on a team or by yourself or with your loved ones and celebrate the success of the closing? Come on, let's see. Okay, not enough. Because every time that we succeed, every time that we win, we should be celebrating that win. Take time to celebrate success. This is my daughter, Mandy, and this is one of our guides, Freddie, that was with us on the climb. It was incredible. And this is actually on the descent. So we had already summited. That's why we had such big smiles on our faces, because we weren't smiling so much when we got to the top. It was cold and it was a long slog, and that's Mandy just kind of sucking it all in and celebrating and enjoying the success of the summit. So let me just summarize. First of all, you can go ahead, establish the objective. Secondly, determine the route. Third, prepare to execute at the highest level. Fourth, surround yourself with the best talent. And if you are surrounding yourself with yourself, then you need to be thinking about how you need to be the best talent. And if you feel as though you aren't quite there, well then get to work. This business is so deep and so wide. What I love about it is there is not one day in 30 years, I've been in this business since 1988, there is not one day in 30 years that I've not learned something new. Not one day. You know why? Because I'm open to it. Because I want it. Because I want to learn. I want to stay relevant. I want to stay in front of what's going on with the business, with the market, with the process, with the people, all of that. So make sure you're training yourself. Surround yourself with the best team. Continually assess the team and yourself and your talents and the process. Commit to holding yourself and others accountable. Commit to having fierce conversations when you need to, and be prepared to unclip people from your team. You owe it to every other member of your team to have the one person that's holding the team back to find something else to do. And then last and critically important, celebrate your success. This is a hard business. I know that the consumer believes it's easy. They think we sit back and just, count our money. Going out and knocking on doors, 100 doors in a day, hello, and then making 60 plus calls the next day, that's hard work. Mentally, physically, hard work. So celebrate it when you get a closing, when you get a win. Make sure that you take time to celebrate yourself and your team. I hope this was helpful. It's always great to be here, and thanks for the time.
There we go. All right, how's everybody doing? Thank you, Rick, Jeremy, and everybody who's been standing up here. Good stuff. Danette, know your brand, right? So I've been sitting there, and the whole time as I was sitting there, I watched my palms get sweatier and sweatier and sweatier. You ever have those moments where you're like, wait, what am I going to say? Wait, I've written this whole thing down, or then you have this listing presentation, and then all of a sudden you do a whole different presentation. This will not be one of those days. I'm going to follow my script, just for the record. So, with that being said, let's just start off here. So, people keep talking jokingly. I don't know if they are joking or not, but I have put on a very nice tan, just for the record, for the summer. And part of that tan has come because I've gone on some really fun trips, and it's been an extraordinary time to be able to spend time with, where are we going? Spend time with my family. And, about 3.5 years ago was the first time where I found myself truly disconnecting. And I had the opportunity to be on a trip, and an opportunity to be able to truly disconnect. Now, I was gone, and you may not know this, but I was actually gone 19 days. And it took me 10 days to where I'm like, wait, I'm actually on a trip. And I finally was able to take a step back. And I was thinking, Rick, about how you said about celebrating, how seldom I have done that over the last decade. And so from that, just one, I want you to know how committed I am. But two, I think that we should celebrate just a little bit more. So let's celebrate. What's interesting is what Bob Nelson came and said, which was the fact of everything that we've done as an organization. It's pretty fascinating, the achievements, the goals, the personal things that you achieve, the things that you've gone through. So look, for me today, my hope and expectation is simply this. And that is that you'll take something, get something that you'll be able to take home and sit there and go, you know what, that made a difference. And I don't know what it's going to be. My hope is that you and I laugh a little bit today, because I revel in making fun of people. So that's like one of my pastimes. And it's usually myself. And then I always get the comments of my daughter Ashley, those of you who have met her at the front desk in Union Park, and she always says, stop talking about me. So I had to make sure her name today. So if you see her, she's like, everyone keeps coming up talking about I was making out. And I'm like, it's a good story. All right, it's a good story. But today is not about Ashley. So here's the deal. So, well, I got to go back to the other photo here. We're just getting started. So last weekend, those of you who haven't ever been, has anyone ever been to Arthur Ashe Stadium? Has anyone ever, have you? All right, Glenn, awesome. So Arthur Ashe Stadium is kind of like the mecca of tennis. It's where, Arthur Ashe, a very, very prolific tennis player, African-American, named after him. And this is the scenery, and this globe is ginormous. And as you're walking down towards this thing, you realize you're starting to become, and you're going to be part of something pretty darn special. And there's all these, the trees and park-like things, and you're walking towards the stadium. And as you're walking, you start to, take in just a moment. I'm not going to go into the details of all the different stuff that we saw, but I went with, let's go to the next photo, just very quickly, because I want to get to really the point. This is my daughter, Mackenzie, who most of you know, Dylan, part of the Backstreet Boys. Just kidding. Just kidding. But this is in the American Express Tennis Center, and then my son Isaac. And so the four of us got a chance to go back there, and for Father's Day, Mackenzie had bought U.S. Open tickets, and so we went to the U.S. Open. So let's go to the next page. So of course we're pretty excited, and so let's start with hold on, man. Hold on. I'm even new to slides, man. I have a hard time with the slide thing. But all right, so she's pretty excited, as you can see. But so as we start going into the stadium, this is the match. If you haven't heard about it, it's between Serena Williams and I don't even know Osaka's last name. What is Osaka's last name? Osaka. Is the last name. Thank you, Jeremy. I should know more about the details. I don't know. What's her first name? Naomi. Thank you. All right. I don't know. That's not even the point because we're going to talk about Serena. All right. So, but here we were, sort of walking in, and of course, I'm watching StubHub, and of course, she got me some really good tickets, and I was pretty excited about those tickets, which are the tickets that she's holding in her hand. But as we kept walking, and there's people everywhere around us, and by the time we're up on the third section, I had purchased different tickets, and these tickets like dropped all the way down to the ground price, and so we got this opportunity to sit on the front row of the U.S. Open and watch Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka play tennis. And it was a lot of fun. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is this. As we were sitting there, and they started showing people on the screen, like Alicia Keys, and it was still the debate was LeBron James there or not, and then there was the rapper. Who was the rapper that was there? 2 Chainz. I don't know. Do you know that? Relate to that? I don't know. But then go to the next page, next picture. We're here. We're walking out. There's Kevin Hart. And I'm like, Kevin, can I get a selfie? He's like, sure, dude. And then I gave him the rock when we're done. And I mean, it was kind of it was like one of those moments. And as we're down there, Kenzie's like, I can't believe we're here. We're here. And she starts like swelling up with tears. She's like, this is like, she always uses the word, this is legit. Like, was it not legit when we're up on the third section? But, so we're sitting there, and so let's go to the next one. So here's the whole crowd. This is Arthur Ashe Stadium, and we're right at center court, right there on the right, and on the left, because that's where the press box was. And as we're sitting there, you're watching all of these people play, watch these 2 ladies play, and as you're watching them, man, they are focused. And I was thinking about all the different things that champions do, right? They had routines. They were, you could even see that they were taking deep breaths, and they were clearing, and they were focusing, and they were doing all these different things. And let's go to the next page, next slide. And I'm sitting right there. I mean, there she is. Now, I don't know if you know that she's won. Roger Federer will say that she is the greatest tennis player of all time ever. She has won 23 Grand Slams. She has won multiple, that's in singles, and who knows however many she's won in Grand Slams in doubles. I mean, she is amazing in regards to what she's done. Most of you know that if you don't know, she recently had a baby in the last year, and so she has come back. She got to the finals at Wimbledon just a few months ago or a month ago, and here she is now in the finals. What was interesting to me is this, and I think that whether it be climbing, whether it be sports, athletics, there's always these great examples that relate so deeply and so closely and easily to business. And so when I'm watching her, and I'm watching her begin to play the match, and she gets worked the first set. I mean, she is like destroyed. I mean, she basically loses right from the get-go. Then the next set goes on, and she starts to play a little better. But she's complaining, and she starts whining. In fact, you're going to love this. This is the true story. As soon as Serena lost, I got a text from Mike Ferry, and this is the words of the text. He goes, I know you were at the match. And he said, I bet you Serena Williams was a former real estate agent. And that's a fact. And he said that because she could not keep her emotions in check. And so, let's go to the next page, or next slide. So, here we are. I mean, and in fact, Kenzie has a recording of it. And we are straight across, and we are watching her. Now, this is what happened. Her coach started coaching her, and you can't be coached in the U.S. Open, so she got penalized. She got penalized a point. She didn't see it. She was mad about it. She thought that the ref stole something from her and thought that he was a thief, which she was saying right here. Then she got mad at a set where she broke, if you would say, the set, or broke a game for against Osaka, and so went up, and then she gave it right back. And after she lost her serve, she slammed her racket down to the ground and just went. Have you saw the match, by the way? Anybody? A handful of you? So she's slamming her racket into the ground, and then she walks over and she gets another point. So at this point, she has 2 warnings. If you get a third, you lose a game. So then in this conversation, she starts screaming, "You're a thief. You're a liar. You owe me an apology." I was thinking, my gosh, this sounds like a real estate agent. Give me my commissions. You owe me an apology. I'm like, what? All right? But so as she's going back and forth, she starts shaking her finger at him. She's like, going off on him. And she never swears at him, but rules of the deal are you can't attack the ref or the ump. So she gets up, they get up to play, they start to go out. Osaka is about to serve, and the ump goes, whoa, come over here. And he says, I assessed the loss of a game to Osaka, or to Serena, gave the game to Osaka, and so now it's actually your serve against Serena. Well, this was a critical time of the match, because now what happened is it made it to where she was broken again, and to where that made it to where it was the games were 5-3. Serena serves. She serves and she goes 5-4. Next game, Osaka wins and wins the entire U.S. Open. I don't know if you, I've been at a football game where you're being booed, but in a closed stadium that you're in, with who knows how many thousands of people there, I have never heard a group of people boo like they did. I mean, everybody in the entire audience felt that they had been cheated to be able to watch this whole entire thing unfold because of what the umpire did by granting a game to Osaka. And when I sat there and I was watching that whole thing unfold, what came to mind for me was this. The bridge and the gap between our mindset and our skill sets is absolutely critical. And the one thing that was evident, although the umpire penalized Serena, what really happened was that Osaka broke the mindset of Serena. What she really did is that she crushed her mentally, and then she lost physically. And you watch this whole thing unfold, you begin to realize that think of how many days that you may be physically doing what you're supposed to be doing. And yet what it begins to happen is that your mind drives a whole different outcome. And my observation is that I think that you guys will all agree that every one of us has a moment in our life and in our time of our life where we may be doing the right activities, but our mind is controlling the outcome. Our mind is stopping us from the very things that we want our life to be. So I would just challenge you to consider the bridge, the gap that may be there between your skill sets and your mindset, and can you bridge those together? And so that you're not acting like a Serena Williams, who is a world champion, but that day destroyed her mindset, destroyed her opportunity to tie the most Grand Slams ever in the history of the game. That day, she broke down mentally. And it was interesting that when all the booing was going on, because Osaka didn't understand what was going on, she believed that she was being booed for winning. In championship form, good for Serena, as she pulled and put her arm around Serena and basically said to her, they are not booing for you. They are booing at the ref and booing at the loss. And then she stood up and said, can we please stop booing? And thousands of people, like the leader that she is, everyone stopped booing. So my point to you is this. You'll have opportunities to lead every single day. And you'll have opportunities to protect your mindset, elevate your skill sets, and to make a difference in the lives of other human beings every single day. Every day, you will wake up with a choice. And you will wake up today, or you'll wake up tomorrow, with a choice of what you get to do or what you feel you have to do. My observation is just a few things I want to talk about in regards to what I consider to be a champion. One is this. A champion chooses what they're going to do, meaning they get to do what they want to do, versus they have to. Now, many of you have heard me talk about this before, but I want you to think about how many times, just think about what you say to yourself. I have to prospect. Really? You have to. I have to go into the office. Have to? I have to call these sellers and get reductions. Have to? I want you to think about all the times that you say what you can or cannot do because you say you have to do something different. I would challenge you to recognize that every single day you have a choice. And that when that choice is made versus I have to versus I get to is a whole different level of living. My observation is that if you are a true champion at the highest level, you've made a choice of what you get to do. The managers who lead you today, the leaders inside this company, you know full well many of them could go do something completely different. Many of them could go and say, what you might say, earn more money. But they choose to work on your behalf. They get to work on your behalf. They don't have to come to work. Neither do you. Now you may say, well, wait, I have accountability contracts in place. Yeah, you can limit some of your choices by doing that. But in reality,